So welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining us to our event on inclusive sports. It's sort of first event we're doing as EASPD on the topic of sport. We see quite often in our work, we focus on promoting inclusion in employment, in education, in inclusive living. And these are obviously key pillars for the full participation of persons with disabilities in society. But when I think of my life and what I gain enjoyment from, obviously alongside my job, a key thing that I think of is the sport that I do, and that's been the way for a long time, ever since I was a child. It helped give me a better sense of self. It gave me many friends, and it's also taught me a lot through the years. And we also see that sport is quite a key tool for promoting community inclusion and cohesion. So with this in mind, and with some of the enthusiasm of some of our members, we have brought together this event on inclusive sports that will first look at what inclusive sport is, highlight its impact, and then look at how as support service providers, we can promote inclusive sporting activities for persons with disabilities. So I think we've got a great panel of speakers today who will be telling us more about our work, and we're really looking forward to it. So I'll start firstly by introducing Antonio Garcia from Espurna Foundation, and I'll be inviting him to speak more about what is inclusive sports. So over to you, Antonio. You're on mute to start. You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
There we go.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. Well, first of all, I will do a little presentation. I'm secretary of the board of Fundació Espurna, which is a non-profit foundation sitting in Spain, Valencia, in the Mediterranean coast of Spain. Espurna was born 25 years ago, promoting work and daycare centers, and eventually continued with shelter housings and all kinds of activities in leisure, sports, holidays, and so on. Now we provide all kinds of services for more than 300 persons, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So we are every day supporting persons, and we promote sport because sport is good for both, for physical and mental health, and also because, as you said, it's a very good link with society. In fact, I think sport is the modern form of creating new contacts, new relations, new friendships. What is an inclusive sport is a complicated question, I think, because if we use the Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities to know what is inclusive or not, if we use the Convention as a line, before arriving to Article 30, dedicated to leisure and sports, we should read Article 24 and 27. Article 24 is dedicated to education, and there the Convention says that persons with disabilities should not be excluded from general education system. And also he says that they may access to inclusive quality education on an equal basis with others in the communities where they live. That is a very important point. And also in Article 27, the UNCRPD recognizes the right of persons with disabilities to work. And he says that the work must be freely chosen or accepted, is very important, and has to be done in environments open, inclusive, and accessible. But when you go to the Convention, when the Convention speaks about sports, it's not so clear about inclusion. Article 30 says that the states have to promote the participation to the fullest extent possible of persons with disability in mainstream sporting activities at all levels. Also says that states must ensure that persons with disabilities have the opportunity to organize, develop, and participate in disability-specific sporting and recreational activities. That is completely different than the Convention says. So it seems that it's not the same inclusion in sports and in work and in education. It's complicated. The important question, the difference here, is that for employment and education, the Convention directs us to mainstream models. But in sports and leisure, it allows specific activities. We have no time to deep dive into this question, but it's important to see this difference in treatment. I'm very convinced that all kinds of sport, inclusive or not, are important. We, as organization, which aim to promote a complete ordinary life, must promote physical sports, leisure, and so on. And I'm convinced that we must use sports to empower our communities to change, as the titles of this event says. If we link our organizations with sports, with sport clubs, it will promote to us, to all society, inclusion, to all the members of society, and above all, it will promote personal relationship and friendship. In Espurna, we do football, basket, athletics, sailing, rowing, coldball, pilota valenciana, running, all kinds of sports. And we practice them in a more or less inclusive manner. Some very, very inclusive, and some nothing inclusive, but all of the sports are important. I think I have the honor to present this event because I like to practice sports, and I'm facilitator of an inclusive rugby team. Espurna takes part with its player in a team run by the Cullera Rugby Club and Trust Rugby Association. Some members of Cullera Rugby Club take part in an association called Trust Rugby International. It is dedicated to promote inclusion in this sport, and they contacted us nearly 10 years ago to promote sport and inclusion using the rugby pitch as our link. My role as facilitator is to be a game organizer, a coach during the matches and in the training sessions. For facilitators, which usually are elder rugby players or now competitive rugby players, it's mandatory to have fun and play hard because we are playing there. The importance of inclusion in a mainstream club is not only the sport as a physical exercise, it's also sharing the talks, the fun, the training session, and in the matches, the links that we create in our trips, because we, as David will say us, we do trips and where we have fun. We travel more than 50 persons, men and women, different ages, different professions, different abilities, to many cities to compete, to have fun. And the excuse, the apparent reason is the rugby. I want to finalize doing a quick summary. For me, all practice of sport is positive, all. But we must focus on the terms of Article 24, we as organization, Article 24 and 27. We have to practice them in environments open, inclusive, and accessible. We as organizations have to be the link of our members and users with the mainstream clubs. We would have a bigger spectrum. We would have a bigger spectrum of sports to offer because they may be freely chosen or accepted, and because we must tend to practice sport on an equal basis with others in the communities in which they live. I hope this event help our organizations to break barriers through inclusive sport and be a little introduction to EASPD in sports. I'm pretty sure you will enjoy and learn in it, thanks to the preparation that Callian Farren and Rachel Vaughan have done. Thank you very much for all to being here and enjoy the event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Antonio, for providing some scene setting for us and starting our events. I will now hand over to Callian. She'll be the moderator of our two panels today. So I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today for what I'm sure will be a really interesting discussion across our two panels. Just to remind everyone as well, there will hopefully be time for a Q&A or some questions at the end. So please feel free to put any questions you have for panelists in the chat, and we will come back to them, time dependent. But to kick off, our first panel has two participants. First will be Sebastiano Lommi, who's from the European Platform for Sport Innovation. And second, we will hear from David Gomez, who is a rugby player on the rugby team in Fondazione Espurna. Excuse me for my pronunciation there. But firstly, I'll pass over to Sebastiano, who will be giving us some insights of the benefits of inclusive sport from his organisation and also their members. So over to you, Sebastiano.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, especially for inviting me to attend this panel. I'm very happy to be here with you. Indeed, I represent the European Platform for Sport Innovation. We are a membership-based organization located here in Brussels with more or less 150 members representing the sport ecosystem in Europe. So both private and public entities, from municipalities to companies, universities, clubs, federation, grassroots sport organization, and so on and so forth. We support our members in many different domains. So the sport is an umbrella term somehow. It includes many different things, of course. And one of such a domain, of course, is also the one of inclusive sport. I don't have a personally first-hand, let's say, experience, meaning that it's not my core domain, the one of inclusive sport, but I'm being in touch with a lot of different entities, sport entities throughout Europe. What I basically get told every time by people that have such a kind of experience is that we don't need to reinvent the wheel to justify the importance of inclusive sport. We know very, very well what are the benefits of sport practice for everybody, basically. So, of course, sport is an health-enhancing practice. So if you practice sport, you live better, you live longer, you live healthier. This goes for everybody, for athletes with disabilities, for all sorts of persons in the world. The same time, of course, we know, and we have a very, very wide literature on the topic. Sport is not only beneficial for health, but is also for physical health, let's say. It's beneficial for mental health as well, because you are with other people, your social life is richer if you practice sport. You feel better with yourself. You feel empowered when you achieve your results, when you improve your performance. So, what are the benefits of inclusive sport? Well, I mean, those are the benefits of sport for everybody. Of course, we know that when it comes to inclusive sport, we need to have certain approaches, certain methodologies that are effective to involve people that otherwise would have difficulties in being involved in mainstream sport practice or mainstream sport organization. But when it comes to the benefits, I think that, well, I mean, we don't really have to justify a lot of things more than we do for sport practice for everybody. Sport is beneficial on so many levels that it would be, of course, it's quite obvious that it's beneficial also for people with disability. At the same time, I think that also some of the problems that we encounter when we try to promote sport practice, and we do it a lot in many different projects, are rather similar. Of course, one of the main problem when it comes to the promotion of sport practice, for instance, is to keep people motivated and engaged throughout time, because practicing sport can be also demanding. We know, for instance, and here we have also studies, that people with disability are less involved in sport practice to a significant extent, which of course also entails that they do not enjoy the benefits of sport to the same degree that other people can do. And we also know that strategies that work very well for everybody, such as gamification approaches, work very well also for people with disability. So ultimately, the benefits of inclusive sports, I would say, are the benefits of sport per se. But on the other side, I would say that there are also benefits for, if we adopt an inclusive approach, indeed, there are benefits also for able-bodied athletes, meaning that if we talk about the social dimension of sport, the fact that when you practice sport, you normally go out of your comfort zone because you are more exposed to also to the fact that you are practicing something that you're exposing yourself somehow to to something that you're not even used to much. Then you get to meet new people. You get to meet people with different ideas, different views. This goes for all sorts of sport practice. But of course, if you practice inclusive sport, then of course you get also to know people with maybe a disability that you wouldn't normally encounter. So we know that the social dimension of inclusive sport is mutually beneficial for disabled athletes, but also for everybody, because then through sport you get to know other people that have different situation, different conditions. So in general, I would say that this maybe is another side of the benefits of inclusive sports that we do not normally consider, but this is as relevant as the other one that I've already mentioned. So health, social inclusion, empowerment, and self-respect, that are the core values of sport in general.
Absolutely, Sebastiano. Yeah, I think, as you were saying, that the benefits of sport are universal, but I guess the important thing is making that access to sport universal, so everyone can, access them and make those connections as well. I wondered, just before we move on, is there any kind of feedback you've gotten, or any of your members who are doing any specific projects in the field of sport for inclusive sports for people with disabilities that you'd like to share?
Yes, of course. There are indeed some currently running projects that are very interesting in this domain. On one side, I mentioned indeed this gamification approach. Gamification is basically a technique to make people more active and to challenge them to be more physically active through a gaming approach. So if you feel challenged, normally we know that people tend to react in a positive manner to the fact that they need to score points, they need to climb a rank or whatever. This works very well for all sorts of athletes and also for all sorts of amateur sport practitioners. You can think about Strava like app or all sorts of really gamification apps. Now we are working on projects to develop this kind of apps tailored for people with disability, in particular for wheelchair users in this case. This is a project we are developing in cooperation with the Irish Wheelchair Association, and also with a company based partially in Belgium and the Netherlands. So gamification approaches that work very well both for all sorts of athletes. And also there are some interesting examples of inclusive sport that can involve on an equal level able-bodied athletes and disabled athletes, both physical but also people with mental conditions. I'm thinking here in particular to a sport that originated in northern Italy. It's still very much somehow local, but it's a very interesting practice. It's called Basque-in, which literally means inclusive basketball, let's say. So the rules of the game have been shaped specifically to be able to let everybody play together at the same time on their own terms and conditions. I know it quite well because I have a very good friend that is coach of a team. So it's also a very funny sport to watch as part of the audience. And I think this is something that would definitely be relevant for and ready maybe for a European scale up. So we are trying to work now on bringing this sport into a European project, because it's a very relevant approach, which has, as far as I know, also produced very interesting results in terms of inclusion and in terms of also the empowerment feeling of the athletes that practice it. So for instance, this is an example. There could be many. The idea of adapting rules and having rules that allow people in different conditions and with different capabilities, not only people with disability and able-bodied athletes, because of course also able-bodied athletes are of all different levels, to play together. Well, this is something very interesting and something that we are really trying to bring to the European attention, let's say.
Brilliant. That does sound very interesting, absolutely. And in our second panel as well, we'll be hearing from a number of people who are working on European projects related to inclusive sport and access to sport. So yeah, there's definitely lessons to be learned, and we'll hear more about that later on in our second panel. But now I'd like to introduce David Gomez. David is a rugby player from Fondazione Espurna. And I'm just going to ask David a few questions about his rugby team, and we're going to have a little chat about his experience. So, good morning, David. How are you?
Muy bien. Muy bien.
Good.
Great, thank you.
Good. Thank you so much for joining us today, David. To begin, I wanted to ask you, what sport do you play in Espurna?
Pues el rugby.
I practice rugby.
You're on the rugby team. Excellent. And how long have you been on the rugby team for?
8 años.
8 years.
Wow, that's a long time. You're a veteran, a long-time player. Excellent. And did you play, before you played rugby, did you play any other sports?
Pues sí. Estaba
Yes,
haciendo
before
antes
rugby, I
natación,
practiced swimming,
fútbol y
football,
baloncesto.
and basketball.
Wow, you're a very sporty person in general. Absolutely. And where on the field do you play? What position do you play?
Pues en ala.
On the side?
On the wing.
On the wing,
the wing?
yes.
Is that because you're really fast?
Pues sí.
I'm quite
corro
fast.
demasiado.
I run quite a lot, to be honest.
Yeah, you have to be very active to play on the wing. I know that. So you must be very fast. And with your team, do you get to travel a lot? Where do you play your matches?
Pues.
Well,
algunas
sometimes we
veces
play. We go to Vitoria in the north of Spain, in Agnani, in Almería in the south, in Madrid, and in Avila.
Y Ávila. Diferentes partes de España. Sí.
Okay, so it's a lot of traveling. Do you enjoy the traveling with
Pues
your team?
demasiado. Pues, me
I love
encanta.
traveling, to be honest.
Oh, good. It's a good experience. Amazing. And can you tell me more about the third half? What's the third half of playing rugby?
Pues
Well,
hacemos.
what do?
Hacemos.
We
Turismo.
always do a bit of tourism where we travel after the game.
Después de los partidos, después de ducharnos, además de ¿qué se
After
hace?
we
¿Qué
take
se
a
comparte con
shower,
los
what else do
otros-
we
con el otro
do?
equipo?
Sí, con los otros equipos, sí.
Yes,
hace?
it is true. We spend some
Vamos
time with the
tomar
other
algo,
team,
va a ver la
and we
actividad
always go
bastante
have a
locos.
drink, visit the city
Estamos
together, we
dando
take
paseitos
pictures,
y mirando la ciudad,
we
sacando
stroll
fotos
around, visit the
y así
city,
aprovechamos,
take pictures.
aprovechamos
It's a way of making the most
el tiempo.
of our trip.
Y hacemos amigos.
Yeah, and we make friends, right?
Y hacemos amigos.
Yes, I'm great friends with them.
Amazing. Cool. So you get to spend some time with people after the game and talk. That's nice. That sounds like a nice part of the experience.
Yeah.
Cool. And so the people on your team, are you good friends with them?
Pues sí, mucho.
Excellent. Yeah, it must be nice to play with your friends for sure. And what is your favorite thing about playing rugby?
The thing I like the most, I really like rugby. I like it a lot. And
me gusta correr muchísimo.
I like running. I like being fast. So
velocidad, así.
I like,
Me gusta mucho.
yeah, I like the speed. I enjoy the speed. That's what I like about
Cool,
it.
yeah. It's nice to be active and to be outside, definitely. And if someone was to come to you, if you had a friend who wasn't on the rugby team or was like, oh, you play a sport, would you encourage them to also join the team?
Yes, yes, I would encourage them if they are eager to try. I think it's always good to have more people to play rugby with.
Definitely. The more players, the better. So you can play better and beat the other teams. And of course, have fun.
Yes, totally.
Brilliant. David, is there anything else you want to say about the team or anything else you want to share?
Yes, I remember that every time that we finish after a game or after a trip, we always sing a song.
Ah, excellent. What song do you sing?
We always sing La La La. It is a song that we always sing. It is like a fun haka, let's say.
Exactamente, un haka. Eso sí.
A fun haka. That sounds amazing. And it sounds like a good way to finish the games, of course.
Pues sí, buena idea.
Yes, it's a good idea.
¿No
Would
quieres
you like
contar
to
que
explain
en
that
2
in
semanas
2
nos
weeks
vamos
we
a
are
jugar a
traveling
Madrid,
to
el
Madrid for
Campeonato
the
de España?
Spanish
Sí, ya
Championship?
lo sé. Cuéntalo,
No, que
cuéntalo.
Ooh, tell me, yes.
Pues
In 2
a
weeks'
la,
time, at the
a la
beginning
otra
of
semana
December, we'll be
siguiente, a
traveling
principios de
to
diciembre,
Madrid
nos
for the whole
iremos
weekend.
a Madrid, el fin de semana entero.
Wow.
¿A
What
qué?
for? We
A
have
jugar
a
un
rugby
torneo de
tournament in
rugby
Madrid.
a Madrid.
Cool. And will you'll play a few games in the tournament? You'll play more than one game?
Pues me han dicho que varios
Yes, I
partidos.
was told
8
there
equipos.
will be several
Ocho.
matches. Yes, several games. 8 teams.
Wow, amazing. That will be, I think that sounds like it'll be a lot of fun.
Yes, yes, I'm sure we'll enjoy that.
Amazing. David, thank you so much for talking to us today about your team. It sounds very fun and exciting, and I think everyone here wishes you the best of luck for your tournament. We hope you win and have fun.
Eso súper bien.
Yes, yes, we'll have fun for sure.
Cool. Thank you so much, David. Welcome. Hope if anyone has any questions for David later, maybe we can come back to them at the end of the event. But thank you so much for talking to us, David.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay.
My pleasure.
Brilliant. Yeah. So continuing on, so now we've heard from Sebastiano and David about both kind of the benefits of sport for people who are trying to encourage them from an organizational level, and then maybe people who are it's very important and interesting to hear a testimony from a player who can tell us all about how fun and interesting it is to play sport and the importance of playing a team sport. Moving on, I would now like to introduce our second panel. So many of the people on this panel work on European projects related to inclusive sport. So we'll hear from Julio Garcia Sabater from the Polytechnic University of Valencia, speaking about the Team Up project. We'll also hear from Marcello Corrado, who is from the European Commission Unit C.3, which is the unit on sports policy and programme, who will speak a little bit more about kind of the policy and funding for inclusive sport at a European level. We'll hear from Luca Pagliarici from ASD Trekify, and they work on the High Ability project, looking at inclusive hiking trails. And then finally, we'll hear from Elena Grosso from Fondazione Paideia, which is also an inclusive sport project working with children and swimming, among other things. So firstly, I'd like to pass over to Julio. And I think maybe just to start off with a question, Julio, where I was wondering kind of how service providers, what's your experience working with mainstream sports clubs to promote inclusion, and how does that work?
Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay. Thank you very much for letting me present as a service provider how the main results of the project, of the European project that we participate a few years ago, and the most important conclusion for us. So let me present first the project. The project was called Promoting Access to Mainstream Sport for Persons with Disabilities. It was led by EASPD, that is organizing now this seminar. We have also the collaboration from the University of Thessaly. They were partners. They had the knowledge about sport, and two sport clubs from Garcia and Romania, and we were the service provider. We are the service provider that we work with people with intellectual disability, and we were interested in the practice of sport at all levels, inclusive sport, adapted sport, or sport of any kind. So the project had three different intellectual outputs. The first one was the community mapping tool. It's perhaps not the most important, but it marked the beginning of the project. So to collaborate with clubs, or to collaborate with different people of society, it's necessary to know which are the main stakeholders, people, clubs, town halls, government, and it's important everything, because as I will in the final part of the presentation, we have to collaborate with clubs, but maybe many times, at least in our more close environment, they are playing in shared fields. They are not playing in her facilities, also in communitary facilities or public facilities. So it's important to share, and it's a win-win collaboration, so for everybody, not for clubs, not for also service provider, also for all the community. This is the maybe the most important intellectual output. It's a training course, and in fact, actually, you can now enroll in this course, and you can train and how to work with sport and inclusive sport. If you go to this link, or maybe it's easier for everybody to go to Google and to put EASPD and Team Up, that is the number of the project, and you can access to the link that go to the knowledge hub of EASPD, and then you can find Team Up, and you can look for Team Up, and then if you link search, it's easy to find the course, and then you can you can train the course to join the course in Croatian, Romanian, English, and Spanish. So I think it's easy for everybody. And now you can learn something about sport with people with disability. More or less, this is the structure of the course, of the training course that you can have access. It is divided in three chapters. The first one is Introduction to Special Olympics and Paralympics and Intellectual Disability. We are not talking about adapted sport and maybe Special Olympics and Paralympics and it's some kind of this kind of sport, but it's the foundation, it's the background that we have to begin to work to develop a really inclusion of sport. The chapter 2 is physical activities, adaptation and inclusion strategies. You can see a really interesting material about how to adapt sport, how to evaluate or how to diagnose the people that it's working with. So you are with people of different disability, and there is a brief summarize of the main kinds of intellectual disabilities. And the third part is a individualized education program, and with this you can develop and know how to do some kind of material specific for different people depending on the level of disability. All the material are divided in three parts. It has presentation, some PowerPoint, documents, and quizzes to check that we have understood the document okay. So I invite everybody to join the course, and it's free, and it's really easy to join in the course and participate and learn about something about disability and the sport. And the last intellectual output, it's a roadmap for community of practice. It's a document that provides useful information for local partners in developing national, regional, inclusive sports policy framework. The document supports local partners on how to lobby and influence policymakers in order to increase impact at local level for a better access to mainstream sport for persons with intellectual disabilities. A document also consists information about inclusive sport environment that will help us to acknowledge what are the challenges that we need, the steps that we need to establish a local, regional, natural environment. So it's important to know that when we are talking about national environment, it's because there are different sizes of countries in the European Union. So for us, regional environment is more or less the same as other small countries that is national environment. And so identify who are the potential stakeholders, how to engage them, and a small clarification. Finally, Lobby Roadmap will provide guidelines on how to organize and participate in inclusive sport activities. So finally, as a conclusion, and maybe as the most important of the conclusion of the project, maybe it's not a nice slide, but I think it shows the idea that we are interested in translate. There is certain complexity in management people with intellectual disabilities for people who is not just work normally with people with disabilities. There are people with several high levels of disability, and it's not easy for trainers or for sport people that not work together normally. If we leave sport entities or sport club, a standard sport club alone in organizing these inclusive sports, I think they will drop out due to the exhaustion. It's very tired to work without help with people with disability because they do not have the knowledge. If we organize this sport alone without a sports club, only as service provider, maybe we are not doing inclusive sport, we are doing adapted sport. And of course, it is good, but it's not the goal of inclusion, of sport inclusion. So we understand as a service provider that there are two approaches to the practice of inclusive sport. The integration of the service provider into a sports club with a standard player. When I'm talking about integration, I'm talking about a close collaboration with a service provider, between service provider and a club. And the other way is integration of players from a sport entity into a service provider, that the service provider is organizing the sport. The second option, integrating the players into a service provider, maybe can be interesting, but it will require a lot of effort from the service provider to keep the players involved. And we think that it's not sustainable, but it's better than nothing. The first option, integrate the service provider into a club, letting the club to be the real organization of the event, maybe is the best way. Why? As a service provider, we have the obligation to know how to work with people with disability, and we don't know nothing about the sport, with anything about the sport. It's not real, but we have a lot of knowledge about how to work with people with disability. And in the sport club, they have the knowledge about how to do a sport with people. So it's important, it's mandatory to mix all the knowledge and collaborate together for mixing the best of both worlds. And the most important reason is that the most important of inclusive sport maybe is not the sport, maybe is the inclusion. Inclusion sport, of course, it's important, and we have heard the other participant, but the most important is the inclusion. And the integration into a sports club allow us to integrate more standard players, normal players that are playing with their clubs, with their different ages, and then sometimes once a week or once in a month, they play with people with disabilities. So when more as we are, the more fun we will have. In addition, when we collaborate with a sport club and we let a sport club to participate, then we can integrate not only in the physical aspects, but also in the social aspects of the club. As we have heard David when he was talking about rugby, it's about tourism, it's about parties, it's about dinners and every kind of mass events. So if our goal is the real inclusive integration, the best thing is collaborate with sport clubs and go with our players, with our workers, and maybe with our materials and knowledge to help them to do a inclusive sport, and not adapted sport, also a real inclusion. And maybe it's too much time. Thank you for your attention. If you have questions, maybe later.
Thank you so much, Julio. Yeah, I think I feel like there's a common thread going through all the inputs we've had so far about looking at the kind of taking part in sport is one thing, but all the further benefits that come from it, and how, integrating inclusive practices into mainstream sports services or with mainstream services and sports clubs can often further those benefits. Just one maybe quick practical question for you. The online course, and we can share that link to participants to the course after the event. What is the kind of target audience for the course? What professionals do you think would benefit from maybe looking at the online course?
we should be people interested in the training course. I think there are. It's general. It's not really difficult for any kind of people, but the course was developed for people with all the collaboration of the partners of the project, but people from University of Thessaly. So it has a lot of information for trainers, for people who is making sport with people with disability, and they need information on how to work with them, how diagnose, and how to adapt materials and any kind of training in the car for the people. So of course it's interesting for everybody, but I think the people who has some ideas or for training in physical activities, it would be more interesting for them.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, I think people are it sounds like it's very practical, and people are also always looking for the how-to in this situation. So yeah, we'd really encourage people to take a look at it. Thank you so much, Julio, for your input. It's really very interesting and appreciated. I can now move to Marcello Corrado from Unit C.3 of the European Commission. And I guess just to kick off, I was wondering, yeah, what is your unit doing, or what does your unit do in terms of promoting opportunities for sport and physical activity for persons with disabilities?
Hi, thank you, Talia, and thank you to everybody here for this invitation and the organization. Thanks to the interpreters, which I understand are working, although we don't see them. I don't see them, but anyway, I work in the sport unit in the G Education and Culture in the European Commission. We are focused on sport, although our focus is not really on disabilities, in the sense that we cover many aspects relating to sport. For example, sport and economy, where we talk about the impact of sport, the industry, sport, the goods industry on the EU economy. Then we deal with integrity, for example, so fight against doping, gender equality, athletes' rights, and so on. Then, of course, there is one main horizontal priority, which is driving all our policies in the EU level and the member states level as well, which is the greening of our activities in all aspects. So, for example, that is also very important in sport. Just think to the, for example, synthetic, the football pitches or other issues. Then there is an important part that we do with social inclusion. I would say the societal role of sport. And for us, this means, of course, also issues like health, equality, gender equality, and inclusion, where inclusion is geared towards many target groups. Amongst these, there is the disability issue, which is probably the most important, together with, lately, I would say, the issue of migration, which is very important now. But these, I would say, are the most important, but it's not only limited to this. When we talk about inclusion in sport, I see especially two main approaches or two main activities that we try to support both in policy and with funding. One is organization like yours, I suppose, where we talk about inclusion through sport. So your organization has activity using sport, although it's not the focus, to include and facilitate inclusion. Then we have the real sport organization, so basically club affiliated to federation or not, grassroots or elite, every kind, where we try to increase the participation of all people who would like to participate in sport, but for some reason, for some difficulties they have, they are not allowed, for barriers of various kinds, emotional, physical, many kinds of barriers. So this is what we are doing. I was checking while we were talking. I take a note because I was looking at my data. So, for example, the Erasmus Plus program, on which I will come back just later, has funded in 2022 92 projects with 12.5 million, and in 2023 in social inclusion 85 projects with the amount of 13 million. Now I don't have the data, but I could dig a bit in, but I suppose that a vast part of this is related to disability. I would not say percentage, but certainly it is an important part. I think that before we talked about the legal issue, I will not enter into this, but I would like to tell you a bit more what we do in policy. So we have, first of all, the driving document which guides our activities is the EU Work Plan for Sport. Just very shortly, let me recall that the European Union has not a specific, competence. We have a supporting competence. So member states are still those who apply the rules, make the regulation and law. But we support and we try to increase the impact that we can have by facilitating the activity that we can run at the EU level. So in this current EU plan, EU Work Plan for Sport, which runs until June of next year, 2024, there is a strong emphasis on promoting access to sport for all vulnerable groups, disadvantaged people. So then why it is important? Because of course with this document, then we can translate the policy priorities into action. And this is what if you want, it's a legal base, what allows us to do some activities that we try to do. Then also from the policy point of view, there is in 2019 we produced in 2018, sorry, we produced study on mapping the issue of access, especially to sport for people with disabilities. And starting from this work that is still very actual, I would say, although it's 5 years ago that we prepared it, then there was the resolution of the council, and that was done under the Romanian presidency, in which the access to sport for persons with disabilities was translated into a council document. So that also is something that guides us. And of course, there was the promotion of inclusivity, which we talked with, was raised already before. Then collaboration, visibility of what we do, data collection. It's an invitation both to member states and to the Commission to work on this topic for the long term. And of course, also the financial support was something that was mentioned. Then also, from the point of view of how, from the political point of view, the European Commission can support this kind of activities, we have an important yearly meeting, which is the Sport Forum, the EU Sport Forum. It takes place in the first half of the year in the country which has the presidency. And so we bring together a lot of stakeholders, also athletes, policymakers, sometimes people we heard already that, from Julio, that have, for example, important, interesting projects, and so we do this kind of work. Then we have the Be Inclusive also. Let me mention this. This is an award. A few years ago, there was the idea of how can we increase the impact of these activities. So the idea is that we have to give recognition to those people who are involved in this. So although the Be Inclusive Award is not something which is financially very impressive, I would say, although the prize is 10,000 euros, so it's still something, but it gives recognition, it gives visibility, and it's sometimes it's a role model. Last year or 2 years ago, I don't remember, there was a project you may know probably, A Ball for All, so which is from a Greek expert, Elias Massoras, we developed the ball for playing with the blinds. He's the president of International Blind Federation. So several times we have awarded the prize to organization working with disability, which is in the framework of social inclusion. I would say 2 words on funding. Then there is the Erasmus Plus, we already discussed. Just let me remind you that since few years, we have done a midterm evaluation. It was a couple of 2-3 years ago, I think. The idea is that we have to do, the program itself must be more inclusive. The action we do, the action we fund must be inclusive, facilitate inclusion, but the program itself must be included. So there are now some dispositions, some rules for facilitating access to organization, to persons which need specific support or additional support for organization, for the selection process. There are priorities. So we are trying on these different levels to do. And then sometimes, especially for fundings, we fund also the main organization that we already mentioned before, Special Olympics, International Olympics. Sometimes we partner with them for organizing activities, or we fund them. And or sport events like the mixed abilities there was last year, we fund this kind of events. And this is, for example, the mixed abilities sport is what we are focusing now. Especially to me, it seems a very interesting issue. Of course, there are legal issue, federation issue, the insurance, a lot of problems that we are trying to solve, but this is something which is very promising. So for me, this is it. I hope I gave you an overview of what we do. And I sometimes I saw there's some messages, if we can have names and addresses. For me, it's fine. Everybody can contact us. So it's our pleasure. So we also hear from you, which is very important for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marcello. Yeah, and it is really important to get an overview of all the different initiatives and the different funding streams that are available to people, because obviously it's what makes this work possible. I wanted to ask just quickly, I know you said the current European sports strategy will be finishing next June 2024. Do you anticipate that inclusion in sport of all types, not just necessarily disability, will be continued to be prioritized? Because I guess it's that policy visibility alongside adequate funding that enables people to do this kind of work.
Yeah. Thank you for this question. It's indeed, we are working right now on this, because we are doing, of course, we are taking stock of what has been done in these 3 years to prepare, to propose to the council the next. And for sure, inclusion will be always there, social inclusion in sport, because consider that our aim is working with grassroots sport, which means inclusion. Of course, we work also with elite athletes for the economics, for example, of competition or so on. But basically, we really focus on the society, the sport and societal role. We stay there, and inclusion will be certainly there. We will see it in July next year.
Fantastic. Great to hear. Thank you very much. And again, if anyone has any questions for Marcello, we'll hopefully have some time at the end. So please feel free to put them in the chat. Now I will move on to Luca Pagliarici from AST Trekify, who's speaking on the High Ability Project. So yeah, I guess to start, Luca, could you tell us a bit about the development of the inclusive hiking trails, that kind of process? I guess people are interested in the practicalities of this.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the invitation to the EASPD team, Kalyan, Rachel, and Dimitri. And if you don't mind, I will share a presentation just to help myself and to show, I think, a nice picture coming from the experience we have. I guess you can see it. If not, just let me know. So I represent a sports association. We are an hiking association. We are based in central Italy, in a very green region, Umbria, and which is crossed by a mountain range, the Apennines. That's why we love mountains, climbing, hiking, and so on. So we implement a lot of projects at EU and local level. One of them was High Ability Project, which I'm going to talk about now. We partner with the EASPD, and it was funded in the framework of the Erasmus Plus program. I think it finished last year, but still, I think the experience is still alive, and that's what I would like to talk about. So just a bit of context. So the project, when we started working on that with the organization service providers in the field, is that sometimes when coming to sport, the experience that those organizations were having were a bit, let's say, not too inclusive. They would, let's say, engage people with intellectual disabilities in this case, but not opening up to the, let's say, a wider community. So we try, let's say, to move all the activities outdoor and kind of conceiving nature as a learning environment. So that's how we started, and make it like a kind of, let's say, a new space for education, and while having fun and doing sport, hiking in this case. We tried also to improve autonomy, independent, inclusive life, and in, let's say, in the context of ecotourism and hiking, where people with intellectual disability could develop not only personal but also professional skills. In the picture you see here is a guide, and indeed one of the, let's say, final activities of the project was to have the beneficiaries of the action to take part in excursion and guided tours along with professionals in the field, and that was one of the theses we did here in Italy. And that was the process how we started, basically, in the design of such accessible trails. We mapped the local trails in Italy, Greece, and Croatia. That were the countries involved. So there are a lot, you know, 3 countries, but I guess all across Europe, a lot of existing trails already. Not all of them are accessible. So we did a study on what were, let's say, the most suitable trails that we could take into account. Then we analyzed them, and what were the needs. So starting, for example, from how was the walking path? Was it like steep? Was it like regular? Was it like difficult to walk on? Were there entrails? Were there refreshing point, shaded areas, artificially or naturally shaded areas? And all of this we took in. We took into account. We collected data from all the partners, and then we involved professionals not only in the field of social inclusion, so service providers, but also professional guides, public entities, and so on, to really design the trails. And from there, and that's the experience we had. As you can see, there were a lot of activities going on along with the hiking itself. So environmental workshops, meetings with stakeholders, discussion events, and all the activities you can imagine related to hiking. So you see in the picture here on the right side, orienteering was one of them. So together with people with intellectual disabilities, professionals, anyone involved, we really did this in a participatory way to make sure that really the users were at the center of the experience, and that not only they were then guided on the trail, but really they built the trail together with all of us. And as a result, you can see both in this accessible guide that we developed, but also, and I think this is also an interesting part of the project, and mobile app that we developed, where you can find all the trails that were mapped and designed. It is accessible, so most of the content, 90% of the content, is indeed developed in an accessible way, in order to make sure that users, all the users, were able to use the app and contribute to it. It's educational because it's not just about following a trail, a GPX file that makes sure that you get to the end and you go back home safely, but it's also allows you to improve your skills. So starting from backpacking, organizing the event, the outfit you should have on an outdoor activity, and so on. And it's open because any organization can add trails, organize event through the app, and the app is available on the App Store and Google Play, so you can find it there if you want to have a look. And you find at least around 15 or 20 trails that we tested and piloted during the project. And I think that's pretty much it about the experience. Here in the last slide, you can find the website of the link to the website of the project, where you'll see also the other results, starting from a toolkit for educators, the links to the mobile app, the accessible guide, and the policy recommendation and guidelines developed by EASPD. I also agree that you can share my contact with the participant to this event. And yes, there was, our experience, and just to say that the project ended in 2022, if I remember not well, but that from there, it was not our first experience on the topic, but from there, we keep on working on the topic. And the last event we had for I-Ability in Italy, which was called Montagne Superabili in Italian, so something that accessible mountains, if you like. Now it's an event that we propose every year here in our area, and where we do a lot of outdoor activities, and we involve any kind of stakeholders. And what we are really putting a lot of effort into is to make sure that all participants understand this is not an event for people with intellectual disabilities, but it's an event for the wider community, and that where everyone can join and really make the best of the day, because that's what we're trying to do. And as the last note, there's a typo in the email address, so it's info@trekify.it. It's not EU. Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's no problem. We can fix that before we send it out. Thank you so much, Luca. I wanted to go back quickly just to something you said. I know you were talking about kind of the co-creation element and the participation. How was that an aim of the project from the start, and how was that kind of reflected in the results, like the importance of people with disabilities being included in that process?
Yes, it was an objective since the start, and involving them enable us also like to make sure that at least during the project lifetime, the I think it was 5 at least trails hiking trails that we selected in each of the country, where indeed those that were most suitable for the users, for the beneficiaries, but also not only in terms of, let's say, physical activities, but the ones that they really like. So before choosing them, all the organization in each of in Greece, Croatia, and Italy, they involve all the stakeholders, including people with intellectual disabilities, because there are tens of trails they could choose. So they picked and tested the ones they really liked. So there was really the aim to have the beneficiary at the center of the activities. As it happens, I think, in a lot of other services that are provided for them, but also in this, let's say, sporting activities and this outdoor experience, we wanted them really to be at the center.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's great to see a good example of kind of co-creation and kind of putting the service user at the forefront of the project. So yeah, something that a lot of people can learn from. Thank you so much, Luca. And again, any questions for Luca, you can let us know. And finally, I would like to move to Elena Grosso from Fondazione Paideia, and she'll be presenting on her work with children and community impact. So if you'd like to go ahead, Elena.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to participate to this meeting. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if everything is fine.
That's perfect, yeah.
A few words about my training path. I'm a sport educator for people with disability, and I'm a swim coach. And as a coach, I took place to the Tokyo Paralympics. But also, I'm a trainer for the Italian Paralympic Committee and the Italian Swimming and Paraswimming Federation. I work as a sport activities manager for the Paideia Foundation in our venue in Turin. I'm going to share the link of a short video so that you can have a look, have a virtual tour to our venue. But I'm sure you're mostly welcome whenever you want to come and visit us. Paideia Foundation works to offer concrete help to children with disabilities and their families since 1993. Our venue, the Paideia Center, is a place where we welcome and help children with disability and their families with leisure, support, and rehabilitation activities. It's a place open to all with sport activities, training courses, workshops, spaces, a library, and a cafe. The sport area is made of a swimming pool and some spaces used for physical activities for adults and children. Since the early beginning, we were busy planning the activities, designing the environment. We wanted to make the concept of accessibility concrete and inclusion concrete. We thought that designing the structure, we wanted all the center, but specifically in my case, the sports facilities to be open to everyone in the area, accessible to the community, and not just to the families cared for by the foundation. Physical accessibility is not only the elimination of architectural barriers, but is also thinking about a beautiful and comfortable place with a programming of activities can be planned to respond to the needs. Beauty cures and comfy places help people tends to life more easy for everyone. And this you can count them. There are more than 250 names, and they're names of children with disabilities followed by the center. And they are a part of 800 members. Behind every name, there is a story, a journey, needs that has to be helped. And there are often these kids, often these people who inspire us new projects through their stories. So we started the organization of the sport activity with the swimming pool. And the idea was to dedicate this space, not to rehabilitation, but rather to leisure activities. We wanted the children with disabilities cared by the center to come to our swimming pool to learn how to swim with all the other children. So I've chosen two images which represent the activity. The first one up is our school, swimming school. And the other one is a picture from our social trophy, which is called the Paideia Trophy. That's a competition that we give every year. Is open to athletes and non-athletes. For someone, the non-athletes is the occasion of experimenting the competition, the emotion that comes out of competition in a protected emotional environment. But for some other people, it's just the beginning of a journey through our competition. So we started from the swimming pool, but we got a little bit carried away by adding new sports. And this is one of them, is para dance. But we have also courses of creative and contemporary dance divided into age groups. And then we have got Paralympic boccia, which is a very, very nice experience. It's not an inclusive game, but we have opened doors to our gym. So it happens to let kids pop in and have a look and play boccia with us. And then we have many different activities. We have basket, and Sebastiano, we share our project of basket with the other two societies which are having baskin in Piemonte. And it's very nice to go out for a trip and making kids meet together. And then we have an activity which is called the multi-sport. and which is the concept of multilaterality. The goal, the object is to obtain children who grow up improving their motor skills by playing, having fun, and experimenting different activities. And then we have our bike sharing service, which is a part of accessible bikes available to families, and which are designed to meet the needs of children. So we share this is a free sharing service. Playing sport in an accessible way and in an inclusive context means dedicating time to the 4 dimensions of sport, which is, of course, physical activities, but also relationship, challenge, and fun. 4 dimensions, which has to be in balance to guarantee the educational value of sports. And well, this is we have got concerning with Tutti in Sella, which is the translation of Let's Go Bike. We have 219 ventals in 2022, and now we are just closing the service and for the winter time. There is another aspect that we like to share is the idea of learning a sport and doing sport as a time to share with families, with friends. So we have these 3 services, which is Piscina in Famiglia, our swimming pool, open to families on Saturday afternoons, where families can go and have fun together. Sometimes our kids from the school, swimming school, like to come in the afternoon to show their families how they improve. And it's a time for also for siblings to play together with their brothers and sisters. Then we have got Tutti in Sella, which is the translation for Let's Go Ride. That's the bike sharing. And there is a new project, which is Rebike. And it's opportunity of free loan service of bike and bike school, cycling school, because we also like the idea that sport can be also a way to a sustainable development of our cities. Rebikes involves 5 children a year and receive an adapted bike on free loan for 12 months. A cycling school, and at the end of each year we exchange bicycle, because dealing with kids we have different sizes, we need different sizes, so it's a way to exchange bicycle and get a new one and give a reconditioned bike to another person. And so this is all the sports activity that we are planning to do, open to everybody. I mean, in an inclusive way, thinking about needs.
Thank you so much, Elena. It's really impressive to see like all the new opportunities you continue to add and the new different sports that you include as the project continues. I was wondering, like, what sort of, since the beginning of your project to all these new different developments that you have, what are the kind of learnings that you're applying to each new project? I'm sure there's different things that you learn each time you start a new initiative. Could you share one of them with us? Or?
Yeah, well, I want to share the idea that most of the project have been inspired by people we are having in the center. So listening to the needs is the best thing just to share. Pay attention and listening to people. And there is also another thing that is really important. See kids grow up. Most of the names that you can see in the picture at the beginning are kids that I remember when they enter in the center. And I can share the fact that they improve their abilities, they grow up, and it's really something nice about my job. And then there's a new trend at the moment. In the last 1 year, we are receiving requests for other sports center who ask for supervision and tutoring because they want to open their sports center to inclusive activities. So they ask for teaching, they ask for tutoring, and it's really nice. I mean, since the beginning, we didn't want to be the one alone and only, and we are in front of a big cultural change, and we are very proud of it.
Amazing. That's a wonderful sentiment to end our panels, and it's great to hopefully see the knowledge and the expertise you've gained over the years being spread to other initiatives. So thank you so much, Elena. Could you stop sharing your screen, please?
Yes, of course.
Perfect. Thank you. And yeah, thank you all to the wonderful panelists we've had over the last hour or so. It was amazing to get such a wide overview of the different projects going on, the different policy and funding that underpins that. So yeah, just to see all the different aspects and all the different things we can be doing to help promote inclusion in sport. And we have a little bit of time if anyone has any questions for any of our panelists before I pass back over to Rachel. I'll just check the chat for 1 second.
Maybe I can have a question.
Sure.
And I'll let anybody jump in if they want. We've talked about quite often, obviously, working with sports organizations, sports teams, when trying to promote more inclusive sporting opportunities. And I think it's been touched on a little bit, particularly by Julio. But I think often what we see when we're talking about inclusion is this change of attitudes, of sometimes people are a little bit hesitant about inclusion. So I'd be interested to know, what have people's experiences been when sort of first coming into contact with sports teams, talking about wanting to create it more inclusive for persons with disabilities, what the attitudes have been and maybe how they've changed over time. So maybe via the Team Up project, the Team Up project, Julio can start maybe with an answer. I don't know if Luca and also Elena have any experiences with this they want to share. So sort of what's been the initial attitudes of sports clubs, and have you seen them changed? What's been the experience there?
In my opinion,
yeah,
I think we as organization must change our attitudes, because I heard in many times to sports clubs who says that they arrive to our organizations and we said it's complicated, we have schedules, we have fairs, and it's if we want to link with society, we need to go out of our fairs, and we need to go out of our schedules, because we want to do inclusive sport. We have to train not at the school time. We have to work. We have to train out of school time, and if we don't work out of school time, we have to change our schedule. And so yes, society must include, but we have to also to say yes when someone approach us and says, "Do you want to do something with me?" I think always we have to say yes. It's our change of attitude.
Thank you. Thanks for that retrospective answer. I don't know, Elena or Luca, you have anything you want to add to that?
Well, with children, it's really easy to talk about inclusion. They experience inclusion. Sometimes with adults, it's a little bit different, but many parents come to ask for activities just to want to share the experience of disability with their kids. They want to help their children to grow up. And concerning with the other sports societies, sometimes they are worried, but they ask for tutoring because they want to learn, because they feel that in a very serious perspective, they want to learn how to do that, because they are worried not to do a good job. So just the idea of I need to study, I need to apply, I need to ask for information is a way to face the fact that they're worried, but it's a good way to face. That's true learning.
for us, talking about the iAbility project, was really in 2019 our first experience working directly with disability. And I would say since then, we've been working on the topic more and more. And I dare say there was more of an enriching experience for the association itself rather than for the beneficiaries. And as we see with the members that we get to involve in the activities we do. And it's just an amazing experience. And when we collaborate with other, we are a sports association, and when we see other organizations that we involve in the activities. And I see, for example, as Elena was saying, a lot of changes in the last 20 years. I remember when I used to play football 20 years ago, probably. And I don't remember there were so many programs, inclusive programs in football clubs. And now I see around in our region, which is a small region, many programs involving disabilities, I mean, inclusive training sessions and so on for everyone. And that's something that we can witness and we observe, and I think it's great.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So thank you very much to everybody for being with us today. I think we've covered a lot, as Cal said, in the last hour and a half, so I'll try and maybe summarize it succinctly. Sorry if I missed something. I think we started with Antonio, seeing that inclusive sport is maybe a little bit more complicated. When we look at Article 30, we see there's a right to access mainstream sport, but also a right to access disability-specific sporting activities. And while we didn't maybe have time to explore all those complexities, we saw that sport has a lot of benefits for mental and physical health, your quality of life, personal relationships, and your sense of self. And we talked a lot about the societal role of sport. And that I think, firstly, we should look at increasing access to sport opportunities, regardless of if it's inclusive or not, and then also looking at inclusive sporting opportunities. And we also looked at lots of different sports, so swimming, rugby, more team sports, also outdoor activities, and organized and competitive sports, and saw that sports can really be used to empower community change and promote inclusion. We talked about the use of tools such as gamification that can promote inclusive sports. And we also saw from David the impacts on inclusive sporting teams, how it opens up new opportunities to travel, making friends. I think most importantly that it's fun and we enjoy it. And as service providers, we have a role in promoting inclusive sports, often looking at community mapping, identifying the different stakeholders that we should be working with, being flexible ourselves. Co-creation is really important, and giving a voice to everybody in that process, to support sports opportunities in a number of different ways. We saw that we have different resources already available to us, such as the iAbility course, and also the Team Up course in the Knowledge Hub. And we also see that the European Commission is working to promote social inclusion in sport, including with aspects on disability, supporting with the funding and key partnerships with different sports organizations. And I think that's where that is now. So thank you to everybody who joined. Thank you very much to our speakers for joining us for this Knowledge Cafe. Thank you to our interpreters, and also to Cal for a wonderful job in moderating, and to Dimitri for the technical support. So that's it on me. Cal, if I've missed anything, then feel free to jump in. But otherwise, I wish you a great day, and thank you very much.
Bye, and thanks.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye. Bye.